it's a it's like a new field in Pakistan, emerging field. So my story is that I graduated from NUST. I did my masters in industrial design, and as soon as I graduated, I went to Egypt for an internship. When I returned, I had this desire to do something special. This inner voice in me, it always said that I want to do something special and meaningful. So I started looking for opportunities, because being in my home city, I couldn't find the right opportunities that I wanted to do in my field especially. So one day, doing research on the internet, what is the best possible opportunity that can take me out of the city, out of this situation? I came across Lexus Design Award. I started applying for it. Also, initially, I also had the thought that I will not be selected. Who will select me? Because it's not just for the students or young graduates. It's for everybody. Teams, individuals, companies, people of all ages, all over the world. So anyway, applied. I was a little reluctant. I did not know that I will be selected or not. However, I completed the whole presentation process, and it was a long journey from uncertainty to success. As in, I wouldn't call it success. It was just a starting point for me. I have a lot to do more. I have a lot to do. So that happened, and then followed by a few interviews, a few Skype calls, presentations. I was notified in the mid of December that I have been given the opportunity to be selected as one of the 6 finalists for the Lexus Design Award. I went to New York for a mentorship program. There I got to meet international designers, people who I have grown up looking up to. Paula, for instance, she is the senior curator at MoMA, Museum of Modern Arts, New York. There I could, learn from them, see it from my eyes that what the international standards of design are, what is international professionalism, how to present on an international scale. So I'll tell you a little story. Before my presentation in New York, when I was about to present my idea, my design to the mentors there, I asked them that because I needed a started point. So I asked them that, what do you know about Pakistan? So that I know what they know, and from there I can pick up and start. So this mentor, she stood up, she pointed at me, and she said, "You. All I know about Pakistan is Aqsa Ajmal." And honestly, that was the moment when I realized that it's not just about me. I'm not representing myself here. I'm not representing the designers of my country. I'm representing my country. And I think that was a life changing moment for me over there. I got the opportunity to attend the mentorship program from the world class designers like Bethan Gray. She's the creative director of Bethan Gray Designs, Philip Moline, Joey Choi, and I've been in contact with them. They're helping me out in my design process, telling me, giving me a new perspective, a perspective of looking at design. For instance, uh, something new, if you ask me, what I've learned is how to think about the narrative of the project that you're working on, the problem, how important the narrative is when you are designing. So we are working on that, how to improve on that, on the local context, and how to bring it on an international level. And by now, I'm sure most of you will be wondering what the project is, what it is, and why it is where it is now. So quickly moving on to my project, its name is Persuade. Before I talk about my project, again, I will have to tell you a little story about my neighbor. That how did it come into my mind? What made me do this? So I had this neighbor who is a very dear friend of mine as well. She got into a devastating accident and lost her sight. So she wasn't blind by birth. She lost her sight due to an accident, and it was very difficult for her to come in terms with how she couldn't pursue her studies anymore. And her siblings, everyone, they studied further, they're working in corporate sectors, but she couldn't. So I could see the pain in her eyes, and moreover, as you all know, that special education and equipment such as Braille is very expensive in Pakistan. So while choosing a topic for my thesis, I knew that this is the moment when uh, I have a chance to solve a problem. So this is something that I've been seeing all my life. So why not do something for this? Why not? So I wanted to do something so she could feel valuable by possessing a certain skill set. So she couldn't have to ask anyone for anything. So that inspired me to push more towards this idea and create something for the blind people. But when I came into this, my idea was very different. I did my research, it changed entirely, and how I bridged both of them, I'll tell you with the process. So, my project is to empower the visually impaired citizens of Pakistan by incorporating sewing skill for income generation. I'm sure you must be thinking, why a sewing machine? Why not something else? So a little brief on my project, where we were no specific income. So the idea was skill-based employment. There could be two kinds of employments, either skill-based, or if you have the formal education, you go into the other education sector. So then I started looking into different skills, what kinds of skills, what kind of works that they're already doing in the industry. They're doing sewing, knitting, chair caning. When I did the cross breaking of it, knitting is seasonal based. You need sweaters only in winters. Then there was chair caning. Um, then there was chair caning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can.
Yes. Okay. 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 Thank you so much. Okay. So then there is chair caning. Chair caning is also very liked in Pakistan, but people do not want to buy it. It's very expensive. Um, and also, then sewing was something that stood out from all of them, because when you sew one suit per day, it's enough for you to buy bread and butter for your family for 2 days. So that was something that I took out of it. But sewing with no vision was the real problem, was the real design constraint. But this is where design steps in, and this is my responsibility as a designer to solve this issue. So inclusive design, training workshop, product expertise, and increased efficiency. How it works now, I'll tell you how I relate my project to for the blind people, how it works for the blind people. If you have ever sewn, you might know that if first of all you have to be familiar with the parts of the sewing machine. Then you set up the machine, and then you start sewing with the machine. So I started doing my research on the sewing machine. It's a three-step process. So first of all, when you have to step up a machine, I'm sorry, I cannot, no, I haven't added much detail on it because I am not allowed to, but I'll tell you briefly that what it is about. So as you can see over here, it has an engraved pathway attached to every step. After next to every step is a button. You press the button, and that's how you know a step is being done. And whenever a step is to be done, the button is up. You feel it, you touch it, and that's how you know you have to do it. Then also I can from research we know that blind people heavily rely on sensory references to make special decisions like touch. So by touching and feeling the texture of the machine, you know that there are tactile guides, there are cues, there is a thread guide. That's how you know how to set up a machine. Once a machine is set up, easier for you. Once it's done, there is a touch sensitive guard over here next to the needle. So it helps unnecessary probing into the machine. For instance, the most important part for me to cater in my project was safety, that the design is informing the person. There is texture that it tells you that you need to stop here. Then this sensitive guard, it when your hand touches the sensitive guard, the alarm goes on and the machine goes off. So this is where it tells you that you need to stop here right now to avoid any accident and avoid any cuts. Now, design for inclusion. Design for inclusion means to is a design process in which a product is optimized. So basically my idea was to I'm not saying that this is the best possible solution for the certain problem that I've catered to, but the talk has started. So design for inclusion means to design something that in which a product is optimized. And that mainly depends on two things. Understanding, if you are looking into universally designing something, that depends on two things. Understanding the diversity in people. When you are designing something, you do not have to, look into a certain group of people, or you have to conduct tests between different focus groups and then tests among themselves. So now relating it back to my project and my personal experience, how I did it was that I went to different vocational cities, not just in Sialkot, but in Islamabad, Lahore, and different remote areas in Pakistan, where I met blind people who are working for different, whatever they are doing, working or not working, what are their problems? Because initially, as I said, before coming into this project, my idea of it was very different. um, my idea of it was very different. But then when I started talking to the blind people, initially I wanted to design a washroom for an assistive washroom for the blind people. But then when I came into this, I realized, I talked to them and they said, we are normal people like you. We do not need an assistive cane, or we do not need expensive gadgets. We do not have the money to buy it. If you really want to do something for us, you can help empower us. And that was the moment, I realized that you need to understand the diversity in people. You need to talk to a lot of people that will put things into perspective. The other is responding to that diversity with informed design decisions. Now you've conducted a research, you have to put it into perspective and then start designing with informed design decisions. I have a very good example. I'm sure all of us are very familiar with the example of a doorknob being designed into a normal handle and then sliding doors. So I would really like to talk about the example that really inspired me during my process was this set of kitchen tools for the blind people. Here, if you look at this glass, a teaspoon with integrated float. So instead of putting your hand, if now imagine you being blind, you cannot see. Instead of putting your finger into the water to see if it has reached to the right level, the integrated flow rises up itself when the water is full. So imagine, it's such a simple design and it's doing wonders. Now, design for 7 billion, this is all I can say about this. Design for 7 billion. Imagine designing one product that is for all. Now it's designed for inclusion and the connection between including them in our research, inclusion in terms of research, in terms of thinking about them, to empowering them. I would again like to say that it all starts as a society. It's not just my role or your role, it starts as us. So if we talk about being living in a global village, like my goal is to live in a global village where people recognize that we help those with disabilities. So to help them develop the confidence and maybe the push that they need or the skills that they need to contribute to the society, we need to start doing it from ourselves. We need to create a society that we want to live in. So it's not some other people's responsibility or a certain person's responsibility. It all starts from us, from me. And a path to a better society, these are just the basic stats of how I'm sure all of us know their conditions in the globally as well, not just in the country. 78% of the people with disabilities, they live in low or middle income countries. And the reasons are there: adaptive equipment we don't practically consider them. Now imagine, we there is a lot of discrimination, and dismissing their ability solely basis on their disability is kind of discrimination I'm talking about. Because there is biasness, not just gender biasness, but we would prefer normal people. Nobody wants to give job to them just because some people have some sort of disability. That shouldn't be the case if we want world to be a better place, a progressive society. what do I mean by this is my personal understanding of empowerment is in economic empowerment, and this is what I have tried to do through my project. That when I was there, I talked to them. I was very curious to know that why did they select me out of 2076 submissions and I don't know how many 100 plus countries. I asked them that what is the reason? Why did you select me out of the others? And the answer was that they said there were maximum the amount of projects were about the blind people, but the reason why this specific project was chosen was because it was solving a real world problem. And we can design many gadgets for the blind people or for different disabilities, but we need to think about they're empowering them, giving them opportunities of employments. Again, this project can lead to other people thinking of different employment opportunities. This may not be the best solution, but it has started the conversation. Then we have community engagement. While designing the projects, as I talked about diversity of people while designing a project, we need to not focus on a certain group of people, but when we are designing a project, we need to talk to a lot of people, do researches, interviews, conduct different experiments and focus groups amongst them, and then conclude our research. And then we have, as designers, I'm sure it's very difficult for us to go back to the previous step. If we have designed something, as a designer, I believe we need to have the iterative approach. If you know for me it's a again I still do not, I have a finalized design, but again I think there's a lot of room of improvement. You need to keep iterating, create a product, run tests with the users, ask for their feedback, and then be prepared to go back to the previous step again and keep iterating, have the iterative approach. This is some more of my work. I will just briefly talk about one of the projects, Luminoso. It's a workstation designed for graphic designers. The workstation is divided into three parts. One is where you do graphics work, one is where you do digital work, and then there is a curve that separates the two tables. And that is when, as designers, we get tired, we need coffee, we need water, we need edible things around us. So it separates. So by mistake, if you, let's say, spill the coffee, so it won't affect your work, it will be separate from the other work. So then these are my details. Thank you so much. My Behance, my LinkedIn, Twitter. If you have any further collaborations or if you want to talk about it, anything, I'm here. And now I will take the question answers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. It's emotional, it's very well connected, it's well rooted in the problems we face. It has an element of inclusion, it has an element of good design, combined with good aesthetics. It is a complete package. I think it's really interesting. I can vouch for this because as an engineer and also as a designer, as a researcher, my main area of research is actually working with people with disabilities, and I know how complicated it is to get the user research done, to get the requirements done, and then go back to the people with visual impairment or blind, and then have this nice process done. So I think you've done a wonderful job. Really appreciate it. Another comment I would like to make before I ask a question which have been asked, I think one of the biggest takeaways from your talk was where you very politely said that your idea changed. And I think as a designer, if you're not open to this kind of a mindset, there is no way. If we start loving our ideas or solutions, that's the end of us. And it's very difficult, from a fresh graduate or from a student to hear these things, because almost all of our students love their ideas. And if you tell them that this is not a cool idea, they would of course tell you, what do you know about it? I've spent so much time on this. This is like a first love. I have my first love for the fourth time. So, and I think this is very important message also for the young people listening, that how important it is to let things go. And to sort of believe in the process
and be open to constructive. So I'm sorry to cut you out, but I think that it's very important for us to be open to constructive criticism. A lot of us, we take it personally. If somebody is giving feedback to my design, I would really appreciate it and make changes to it, because that is for me and betterment of my design.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from your talk, Aksa, that one of the things we always say is that the first thing as a designer you need to learn is that you can be wrong, and the second thing you need to learn is that it's perfectly fine to be wrong. So and I think this combination, which is very apparent in your talk, that you've been consistently practicing it and doing it. My first question, based on some of the questions we have already seen in the chat window in the private question answer session, is actually about the complexity of the process. How difficult it is to engage with these special user groups on a longitudinal basis, and going back to them. What are the main challenges you have faced over the past few months while working with this population? Any specific takeaways?
Honestly, I feel like working with them was very helpful for me. They're very polite. When you go to them, when you tell them you are trying to do something for them, they're very hospitable. They're very helpful to you. They would really like to help you in any way they can, in any information that they can give. So honestly, from their side, I believe all I got, it wasn't difficult at all. They were very helpful. They were very encouraging, let's say, because initially when I presented my idea to them, they thought that wouldn't be possible, but at no point they made any remarks or they demotivated me. At every point, at every step, all they did was motivated me, helped me, and they were very helpful in this process. I see a question here: how did you prototype the product and the idea? When you are asking the question, I read this question and I feel like the most difficulties through this whole process I was faced in this particular part, where I was doing the prototyping and working with the local vendors. It was a challenge in itself, and because right now I talk about tactility, I talk about texture, I talk about assistive technology, and explaining these ideas to a local vendor in their language, explaining them, because for instance, international standards were that they're very particular about the deadlines. But here, when I was working with the local vendors, they do not care about the timelines, they do not understand what you're saying. There is language barrier, there is, again, there are a lot of issues, but I have come peace with that, sort of. I'm trying.
Okay, excellent. And I think on the last note, we all know that there is this a famous understanding that accessibility problems of today are the mainstream breakthroughs for the tomorrow. So anything we do today to solve the problem of special needs would become a basic human need and basic technology for tomorrow. I think your work is amazing. Please keep your good work high. We wish you very best of luck, and we really hope that you win. And
Thank
we
you.
have you again, with your new project in the next UX Pakistan, or maybe on a UX camp. Thank you very much, Aksa.